Good morning, ladies. So happy to have you on this morning. We have the Senior Associate Athletic Director of Compliance, Tayler Vena-Harrell, and we have the Deputy Athletic Director for Administration, Julie Levesque, both from UTEP. Thank you for joining us today. Julie, we're going to start with you and let you kind of give a short, brief bio, and then Tayler will go to you, and then you start from there.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Levesque. I'm the Deputy Athletic Director for Administration, which mostly oversees internal operations, maybe some policies and procedures, and sport administration. I'm also the Senior Woman Administrator, which is an NCAA designation. So I represent UTEP at the Conference USA level and NCAA when it comes to any type of matters within the Conference USA that relate to our university and the athletic department. And I'm also the Deputy Title IX Coordinator. And so I am connected with campus and our Title IX Coordinator on campus as it relates to any Title IX issues that involve athletics. I've been in college athletics since 1996, started off as a graduate assistant, coaching track and field. Moved on to my first job as a coach at Division III level. I was a head men's soccer coach and head track and field coach for 15 years, then transitioned over to UTEP as full-time administrator. What prepared me for this job was my time at Division III in all the different areas. I was an assistant athletic director, a senior woman administrator, interim athletic director. So I touched a little bit of everything at Division III and while coaching, which I think really prepared me for this administration only position here at UTEP. So I've been at UTEP 11 years now and just loving it. So
Not to mention you were a fabulous college athlete as well.
Yes, I was a student athlete back in the day, long time ago, track and field, heptathlete at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and was 3-time All-American. And so those were some really fun times as a student athlete. Yeah.
And then you also created 3 collegiate athletes, did you not?
Yes, I have 3 boys, one at the University of Houston now, one here at UTEP, the one at Houston's track and field, and one at UTEP's basketball. And then I have a senior in high school who will be going to University of Houston in the fall to run track.
Awesome. Yeah. Right, Tayler, you're up.
Hi, my name is Tayler Vena-Harrell, and I'm the Senior Associate Athletic Director for Compliance here at UTEP. I've been here just a year now. I just had my 1-year anniversary a few days ago here at UTEP. How I got started in compliance, I always knew that I wanted to work in some area athletically related. I wasn't sure exactly what that was. And on the other side, I had always wanted to go to law school since I was little growing up. So after I completed my bachelor's degree at Pittsburgh State University, which is a Division II school in Southeast Kansas, I went to law school at the University of Kansas, and I had a couple internships during that time. One with the Kansas City Sports Commission. They helped put on like the Big 12 tournament, Kansas City Marathon, other types of races like that, the Super Bowl parades, World Series parades, all those types of events, just bringing the community together through sport. And then I did an internship with Sporting Kansas City for their general counsel, the MLS soccer team in Kansas City. And then it was in my final year of law school that I interned in their athletic compliance office in the athletic department. And that's where I really fell in love with compliance. So after I graduated law school, I took the bar exam in Missouri and passed that. And then I went to Villanova University out in Philadelphia for a year to do a post-grad internship for 1 year. And I did that internship because compliance is a really niche area and it's pretty difficult to get your foot in the door and break into. And so because I had only had those 2 semesters of experience, I was having a hard time finding like an entry-level full-time position. And so I needed a little bit more experience before I could get those opportunities. So I was lucky enough to go out to Villanova for 1 year. It was the best thing I did personally and professionally, just getting away from home, really being on my own for the first time without family, 45 minutes or an hour down the road. Had a great experience out there, learned a lot. And then that next spring, so this was the end of the 18-19 school year, I had, so many interviews for full-time positions. So it truly did make all the world's difference, getting that extra experience. I ended up at Creighton University in Omaha. And I was there for about 3.5 years before I came to UTEP, and running the compliance department at UTEP. I think what prepared me for that was because I had opted to go to Creighton. They had a pretty small compliance staff. And so I was really touching all areas of NCAA athletic compliance. And I also got Title IX experience there. I was the deputy Title IX coordinator for the athletic department on Creighton's campus. If I had gone to another school that had a larger compliance staff, I would have most likely only gotten experience in handling like one specific area. And so because I went to that smaller school, I got to handle all areas. And so I felt very prepared to take on this role here at UTEP. And so
Awesome.
like,
So before we jump into all the compliance and Title IX issues, I want to touch on something that you said, Tayler. A lot of students coming out of undergrad or graduate school think that they're going to apply for AD positions and become an AD immediately upon graduating. And from the sounds of both of you, that is not the experience that most people have coming out of school. Would you suggest taking internships, paid internships when possible, and getting experience? Both of you, is that something that you would suggest, getting experience in all kinds of things? Or do you think it's possible that someone graduates and becomes an AD at the collegiate level immediately?
I think,
as we giggle.
Yeah, for sure you need some experience. You can't just apply for an AD job so right out of school. So you need to figure out, which path you want to take. I mean, you might not even know. And so you might just start in whatever interests you. And then, it just leads you eventually to that position. But it would probably take a few years for you to, really get experience and understand how departments work, and how athletics works. And especially nowadays, like it's just changed so much and it's so different. But I don't know, Tayler, if you agree with me, I think experience is probably the best route, internships and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely just goes back to what I said about it's really hard to get your foot in the door, especially in college athletics. It's really one of those areas where you have to put in your time on the front end. And I had multiple unpaid internships, I will also add. And then my postgraduate position did not pay very much money either. So, I was, finding a cheap place to rent, finding roommates, like I did all that because this is the area that I figured out that I wanted to work in. And because of the path I took and going, doing those unpaid internships, putting in my time, and I had to swallow my ego because I had a law degree and I had passed the bar at that point as well. And I could have gone and done something that I didn't enjoy as much and make a lot more money at that time. And that's not what I wanted to do. And I had friends that were doing that have already transitioned out of those fields as well because they were unhappy. So, and I'm still here all these years later and I love my job and I can truly say that.
Excellent.
Good. Amy, I'll also mention my goal was to be the head track and field coach at Arizona State. That was my goal. And obviously I'm not there and I'm not coaching track anymore, but like, that's how, things just open up and change and the things you're interested in change. And so, I took a totally different path, but,
and I initially wanted to be the head coach, of a cheer program at the collegiate level, and then transitioned from that to an AD of a school district. And then having worked at UTEP and worked in the athletic department, I realized, no, that's not my path. I'm still supposed to be a teacher and still supposed to touch the athletes and still supposed to have those day-to-day interactions with student athletes. So it is amazing over time how your path just kind of, adapts to what it is you're supposed to be doing. So, okay, let's jump into NCAA compliance and Title IX. I know that's a huge kind of broad. Let's talk about NCAA compliance. But the students are looking at things like providing meals to athletes and why it's against the rules to provide meals to athletes, why it's against the rules to provide haircuts to athletes unless you're a family member. Why is or why are those issues forbidden according to NCAA standards and compliance? Have we seen those issues at UTEP over the years?
I'll take that one. So the issues that you're talking about would be called extra benefits. And historically, the goal there is that student athletes were not treated differently than general students or the general public, and they weren't given any preferential treatment. I will touch on the meals piece. Over the last couple of years, they have really opened up a lot of flexibility there, and they are not really limiting universities like feeding their athletes. So like you can feed them, like no issues with providing them meals. What we want to be careful of, and one thing that more so that I'm doing in real time and my staff is, if a team is providing per diem for a meal, we just want to make sure that they're not double dipping. So we should not be providing them cash and a meal for the same meal. So we could provide them per diem for lunch, but then we couldn't also feed them lunch. They have to go out and pay for their lunch on their own because we gave them money to do that. But then for dinner, like we're just going to feed them dinner, for example. The haircuts, tattoos, gear, merchandise, all of that, that's still not allowed. However, there's there's a different spin on it these last few years with name, image, and likeness. And that continues to be ever changing. It seems every couple months, the rules are changing, and there's more legislation proposed right now at the NCAA level. We don't know exactly still what that's going to look like, even though we're a couple of years in. But what I tell my student athletes is, if somebody is wanting to provide you like a benefit or a service or an item, just, take that opportunity to turn that into a name, image, and likeness opportunity for you. So, and there's no fair market value that's been defined right now. So it doesn't matter if it's, like a free haircut. You can just, even as simple as like autograph a napkin. Or if you're out at a restaurant and someone wants to pay for your dinner because they see you and they recognize you because you're a student athlete on whatever team, and I want to buy your dinner, turn that into a name, image, and likeness opportunity and just autograph a napkin. That's what I tell them, to be very simple. Or say like, how can I help you? If maybe they own a small business or, like a landscaping company or something, and they can just like do a simple Instagram story to promote that business. And then we have that quid pro quo satisfied. But if they just accept,
when they do that though, they cannot be wearing any UTEP gear, correct?
So there's different, and this is probably topics for like a whole nother video,
Yeah.
But the state laws are different in every state. So I can't speak nationwide, but in Texas, they're not allowed to wear UTEP marks and logos without our permission. So that's why you might see some schools allowing their student athletes to do that, and some schools are not allowing their student athletes to do that. We don't allow our student athletes to do that, but it's possible that we might if they're working with somebody who's already, an institutional sponsor or already an athletics sponsor. Then we might allow it. So we just tell our student athletes without prior approval. So
good to know. Julie, were you going to jump in there and say something about that, or no?
No, Taylor's the expert on compliance, and so she's most current on everything that goes on. But as co-workers, we talk a lot about issues going on, but for sure she is the expert in that area and shares her expertise with everybody.
Well, let's jump in to transfer portal and how that affects. Well, that's obviously a huge portion of the NCAA compliance manual. I noticed yesterday that we have a new football player, I think it was from Texas A&M, who entered the portal there and is now a member of our team. Is that correct? It was on Instagram. You're not aware of that? Well, so I guess the general question is, for students who are unaware, how does that work at UTEP when someone enters a transfer portal? It's such a big thing, and you hear the word transfer portal, and of course Dr. Pepper is using the transfer portal on their advertisements. But how does that whole thing work from our perspective?
Yeah, and so this process should be fairly similar at most universities. again, it doesn't matter what state they're in or what conference, but the NCAA rules state that a student athlete, they need to provide their notification of their intent to transfer to their current institution. And then everyone probably has some type of form that the student athletes fill out. We have a form, and then the NCAA requires a module, a video module for them to watch as well. So everyone in the country is watching that module before their name gets placed. So once they watch that video and they complete the form, we have to enter their name in the transfer portal within 2 business days. And we usually do it the same day, within minutes generally. And sometimes student athletes, they want us to hold off on entering their name until they want to have some, personal conversations with different people, whoever that may be, and then they give us the green light. So that's kind of the general rule. Then in the last year or so, we've introduced these transfer portal windows. So student athletes can only go in during their specific windows that are identified for their sport. So
A 30-day, 45-day window for football, right?
yeah, I mean, they're a little bit different for every sport. I think they're generally all 45 days, except for everyone has like a 15-day window. You can find them online. You just, search like Division I transfer portal windows. You can see all the dates and how complicated it is. So every student athlete that comes into our office and says they want to transfer, we have to take on a case-by-case basis, depending on the sport, to enter them in, to make sure that we're not entering them in outside of their window, or do they need an exception to be entered outside of the window? So if the head coach announces their departure or departs, that's an exception to enter outside the window. If you are going in to the portal as a graduate transfer, you can go in at any point outside of your window as well. And then once the window closes, if you go in after the window closes, then you just wouldn't be eligible to use the one-time transfer exception.
So when we have a student at UTEP who wants to transfer, let's say a football player, because we just ended, the fall season, and they come to you and they say, I want to transfer. And then 2 days later come and say to you, I want to take my name out of the transfer portal. How does that work?
So they're allowed to withdraw their name. We have a form for that, they're signing off that they're giving us their permission to take their name out of the portal. Once their name's out of the portal, they're not allowed to talk to coaches from other schools anymore. And coaches, and that burden really more so falls on the coaches. We tell all our coaches, if somebody reaches out to you, you need to make sure that they're in the portal before you reply, basically. So they have access to look up names in the portal. They can ask us to look up a name in the portal. And so if it says withdrawn, then I would tell that coach, hey, so-and-so, their name's withdrawn from the portal, you shouldn't be talking to them. And then at that point, I am personally comfortable with my coaches giving like a generic response to either say like, thank you for your interest, I'm sorry I cannot talk to you until your name's in the portal, or thank you for your interest, but I cannot talk to you because I'm seeing that your name's been withdrawn from the portal, and just kind of leave it at that. But there shouldn't be any recruiting conversations.
So once a student or athlete takes their name out of the portal, do they get to stay on the team that they have left? Did the coaches have to take them back? Can the coaches take them back?
Good question. So once a student goes into the portal, under NCAA rules, the institution has discretion at that point to cancel their athletic scholarship if they're on a scholarship. So we wouldn't cancel anything in the middle of a term. So say they go in November, we have the ability to cancel at the end of that term in like mid-December when finals are over. Or if they provide notification over winter break, for example, then we can cancel that aid immediately so that they wouldn't be getting it in the spring semester. There are situations sometimes that are a little bit different. So maybe someone is leaving on good terms, to transfer for graduate school, and UTEP doesn't offer your graduate program. And so that coach might be comfortable saying like, yes, you're still going to be a part of our team, through your graduation in May. We're not going to take your aid. Like there are situations like that. And then there's other situations that a student athlete, like they're just looking for other opportunities, and UTEP might not be the best fit. Where coaches are most likely going to take their aid if they go in the portal. If they withdraw their name in the portal, there's no rule saying that we have to give it back. And then to address the roster spot, coaches have discretion at any time to remove somebody from a roster. So we can remove people from rosters, but leave them on their aid, because aid can only be canceled at certain periods of time. So if they go in the portal, a coach might remove them from the roster. Just because they withdraw doesn't mean that they're going to be added back.
Excellent, excellent answer. I appreciate that. Let's jump a little bit over to Title IX. Julie, that's what you're dealing with primarily. What are some of the issues that you have seen most recently in collegiate athletics of Title IX, particularly at UTEP, but also around the area?
Yeah, so a lot of the Title IX issues that I deal with, I mean, of course, something I deal with on a almost daily basis or every semester is making sure our staff and our student athletes are trained in Title IX, that they understand the university policies, the state laws, and you know, not so much the federal law, because that kind of just oversees everything that we need to do, but just understanding what we do here at UTEP, not only for gender equity, but also, you know, campus sexual violence, and making sure that everyone knows what to do if they need to report an incident, their responsibility as an employee in reporting. And so that's basically what I handle a lot on a day-to-day basis, monthly, because I just need to make sure everyone in our department understands the reporting process and what's required of them. As far as gender equity in our athletics program, following, you know, the federal law, I work on building a gender equity plan, like over 5 years is kind of what I've started here at UTEP. And just really trying to monitor everything gender equity related within our programs. And so it is a challenge. It's very difficult to do that, but you know, we have a plan. We monitor every year the 3-part test to seeing if we're compliant or not. And I usually you can't really do that until your last sport has their first competition. So usually for us, that is track and field in the spring, when they have their first competition for the outdoor season. Once that date hits, then I can start doing the 3-part test and monitoring participation numbers. And so that, but I can't do that until that first competition. So that's what I do for Title IX. Of course, Tayler is involved a little bit with that. You know, she watches out for things, bring things forward, because she actually monitors a lot of like all the team rosters, the travel rosters. She's really, you know, the add delete forms. She has like a great sense and a pulse right on like what our teams have, you know, who's on, who's off, travel, all that kind of stuff. So she's really on top of those things. And so that's a big part of like monitoring all those numbers and making sure everything's really accurate.
So we have about 8 minutes left. I do want to address, here in El Paso, you hear people grumble that we no longer have baseball at UTEP because of Title IX issues. We had to drop a men's sport. Where do we come down on that?
So yes, maybe I wasn't here when we dropped those sports, but you do hear about that a lot, about schools saying they have to drop men's teams because of Title IX. And that's not really, you don't have to do that for Title IX. You just have to figure out a way to redirect your funding and how you support all the programs. You don't need to drop a team, or you add a women's team. You know, there's other ways to do it by just drastically cutting programs. Now, maybe schools have other reasons why they drop programs. I don't know. But when it comes to Title IX, there are definitely other options. You don't need to drop men's teams to be compliant. It's just that the university or the department chooses to do that, to take the easy way out, I guess. And it's just easy to do that, simple, like just, cut, okay, check our numbers, okay, we're good. but yeah, you don't have to do that. You can just definitely redirect resources, money, ramp up fundraising. You can add a women's sport. You can shift money around, balance it out a little bit more based on your numbers of participants. And so, yeah, I know we dropped baseball a long time ago, and of course, everybody asks, can we add baseball and men's soccer? It'd be so great here in El Paso, but we're actually not there yet. We just recently added women's beach volleyball, which is really exciting. And, honestly, we're actually looking at adding another women's sport. We're not sure exactly what yet or when, but we got to finish working on beach volleyball and getting their facility and locker room, which is in progress right now. But, that's kind of where we stand right now with that, dropping men's programs. Yeah.
Tayler, is there anything that you can comment on publicly that's happened in the last year, Title IX or NCAA compliance related, that when you walked into work one day, you're like, oh no? How many moments of those do you have in a week? Those, oh no, kind of moments.
Good question.
I can see your little wheels turning in your head.
My wheels are turning. I feel like there's a lot of pressure in my job because I do not want to screw up a student athlete's eligibility or, because that just affects the whole bigger picture. So there are plenty of nights that like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I need to make sure that I get this done tomorrow. There's not ever been any really, really major instances, but I will say that my job, that it haunts me a little bit outside of work hours, which is fine. I know I signed up for that. I will say like we file, level 3 violations. I want to say like semi-regularly, like it's not that big of a deal to file violation. Coaches, student athletes, staff members, people are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And when we actually file and self-report some of these violations on our own, it shows the NCAA that we have a healthy compliance monitoring program, and our coaches have a good relationship with me and my staff, that they feel comfortable coming forward and talking about a mistake that they made. Or we have all these systems in place for them to turn in like, oh, I was out on the road recruiting on these dates, I made phone calls on these dates, this is who I talked to, all of those types of things, so that we can catch these mistakes if they do happen. And coaches, sometimes they feel a lot of pressure because they say something like, oh, I haven't had a violation in 3 years, and then they have one and they get really upset. And so I just have to remind them, like, it's okay to have a violation. It actually looks good on our program because nobody believes, necessarily like, oh, you didn't have any violations. I remember there was a very high profile athletic department over COVID that they had the Sunshine Law, whatever, a request to release their violations over the past year, and they only had 5. And this school has like so many sports, probably over 1,000 student athletes, huge school. And every compliance colleague of mine was like talking about that on the side. There's no way that they only had 5 level 3 violations across 25 plus sports. Like, that looks like they're either hiding stuff, or their coaches aren't reporting mistakes, or they're not monitoring and finding these mistakes. So I always tell coaches that the way I look at it is it's okay to make these mistakes and to own up to them and work to be better. And I think a school like UTEP should probably be looking at like 12 to 15 self-reported level 3 violations, which are the lowest level each year. Obviously we don't want major infractions every year. That would be a big problem, but the little things, we'll just, we educate, we learn, and we move on.
So we've got about a minute and a half left. Any thoughts you want to leave the students with regarding compliance or Title IX and their studies? Either one of you?
Let's see. I would say, kind of to what Tayler was talking about with the violations, nobody's perfect, right? So communicating, educating, talking with people, and just getting information from people to find out how to do things better, what to look for that maybe you're not looking for. Don't be embarrassed to ask questions. Like if you don't know it, I mean, I talked to Taylor. I've been in college athletics for a long time and I still have to go to Taylor. Can we do this? There's just so many things. And then, you want to do the best that you can, but like keep learning, keep asking questions. And, I don't have a law degree. I'm not the Title IX coordinator of the university. I read a lot. I talk with our Title IX coordinator just to make sure I'm on the right page. And if I have a question, I reach out to him. Hey, I can't remember about this. Can you guide me? Have things changed? Because laws and rules change all the time. So just ask questions, talk, read, communicate, share. And if you don't know the answer or you get it wrong or you forgot something, whatever, it's not a big deal. It's better to be safe than sorry, I think, in these areas.
Taylor?
Yeah,
About 30 seconds.
I would add on top of all of that, I want to second the asking questions piece. I feel like just working in athletics, I have some colleagues around the country, different schools, different conferences. Like Julie said, I ask them questions all the time. This is my full-time job. And a lot of the time I still feel like I don't know what's going on. We're in a really unique place right now with the landscape of college athletics. And so just like Julie said, better to be safe than sorry, whether you call the conference, call the NCAA, just to confirm your questions. And then I would also add for anyone that's interested in working in this industry that networking is very important. So the same as, trying to go out and get internships, whether it's on the campus that you're currently on, or maybe there's another nearby school, reach out, ask if there's any opportunity. That's what I did when I was at Kansas. I volunteered my first semester. They didn't have any money for me. I took an unpaid position just because I was interested in learning in the work that they did. But then just to add in the networking piece, and I should have done more of this when I was younger, but just email people. I get emails all the time of students. They're just interested. They would just want to talk about what I do and how I got here. So most people will be willing to speak to you.
Thank you both for your time. I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Yes.